Okay,
Okay.
good.
Hey guys, welcome to TBH Live. It's 3 o'clock on the East Coast, noon on the West Coast. We do this every day as a daily sanity break for you guys. 5 minutes of meditation, suitable for absolute beginners or meditation pros. And also, this is just a place for people to come and feel like we have a sense of community at a time when a lot of us feel cut off. Every day we bring in a great meditation teacher, and today it's a personal favorite of mine, Dr. Mark Epstein, who's been a pivotal figure in my life. He's a psychiatrist who practices in New York and is upstate in the country right now. But Mark, you're still treating patients remotely.
I'm still practicing in New York, but in New York State, not in New York City at the moment.
Right.
Yep.
Well, maybe before we dive into the question I was about to ask you, could you just give us a couple of lines of biographical information for people who are unfamiliar with you?
Oh, yeah, of course. I'm a psychiatrist, which means I went to medical school, but mostly what I do is just one-on-one psychotherapy with people. Talking therapy, although I can prescribe antidepressants and whatnot if people need them. But the kind of unusual thing about my background was that I discovered mindfulness and meditation and Buddhism when I was still in college. I was still 19, 20, 21 years old. And I went as deep as I could into Buddhist meditation, basically. Jack Kornfield and Joseph Goldstein, Sharon Salzberg, people who a lot of your people are familiar with, became my early teachers and friends. And it was after immersion in that world that I decided to go to medical school to become a therapist. And I was one of the only people in my medical school class who was there with the specific purpose of becoming a psychiatrist. I had that all to myself. So I've been interested ever since in how those two worlds of Eastern psychology and Western psychotherapy, how they fit together. And I've tried to figure out my own thoughts about that by writing a number of books that are, looking at that question from as many different angles as I could imagine. And one of them was called "Going to Pieces Without Falling Apart," which was the book that I lured you in with, or that your wife gave you to read, and then you called me up, which is how we met.
Yes, I was just going to say that. So, "Going to Pieces Without Falling Apart," my wife gave that to me at a time after I had met Eckhart Tolle and was utterly intrigued but confused. And I read your book and I realized, oh yeah, okay, this answers a lot of my questions. And I called you up and you agreed to be my friend. And then now all of a sudden my life has been transformed into becoming a sort of
that's what happens.
Amateur meditation evangelist. So you told us that you were interested in talking today about the subject of uncertainty.
Uncertainty, yeah.
What's on your mind vis-a-vis uncertainty?
Well, in Buddhist psychology, uncertainty is like the central thing. And they talk about it as impermanence, insubstantiality, and unsatisfactoriness. But they could have just as easily lumped all those things together as uncertainty, because we never really know what the next moment is going to bring, let alone the next day or the next week or the next month or the next year. But in normal times, the probability of knowing what the next moment or the next day or the next week or the next month or the next year is going to look like, we have a pretty good idea, even though weird things happen to us individually, But now we're in this universal, it's an incredible Buddhist teaching, really, that the whole world has been hit by this thing that is making everyone in the world basically affected in the same way and extremely uncertain about what life is going to look like when and if this is ever over. That brings the Buddhist meditation message into high relief, because the Buddha was always saying, look, I can help you with this. There is a way to deal with this uncertainty, and it's actually to focus more directly on this present moment, which is all that we ever really have. So I thought I was going to be going on retreat in early March, and I couldn't go because the virus hit, and then the meditation center where I was going to go closed. But instead of me going on retreat, now the whole world is on retreat, But we're all in the back of our minds, this is what I wanted to say, struggling with that uncertainty, trying to identify, trying to zero in on what life is going to be. And none of us know. None of us know is the real thing. So what to do about that?
None of us knows anything. So what to do about that is exactly the right question. One of the things we can do is meditate and learn how to, to the best of our wavering ability, be awake right now. So why don't I shut up and allow you to teach us to meditate for a few minutes?
Fine. But I just want to say there's something about that uncertainty that's good. I don't think we have to shut down the uncertainty. I think in a way we have to open our minds to the uncertainty. And for some people, that's a good way into meditation. So if I can just begin with that, like we don't have to know very much to meditate, okay? We just really have to sit here. So I'll invite people to, can I begin now? Is that okay?
That's perfect.
Okay. Well, for all of you who are listening or watching, if you would first find a physical posture that you can hold and maintain for the 5 minutes or so that we're going to sit together. And if you're comfortable closing your eyes, allow your eyes to close. If you're driving, very few people are driving anymore at this moment, but if you're driving, please keep your eyes open and just listen. But if you're here, you can let them close, or you can look, peek out of them a little bit if you want to keep seeing me. But put the bulk of your attention at first in your physical body, and specifically feel the various touch points. Feel the way your body is being supported by the chair, by the cushion, whatever you're sitting on or leaning against. And just rest your awareness, rest your attention in whatever physical sensations you can find. Feel your sit bones, feel your back, which I always have trouble feeling. Feel your face. Feel the sensation, if you can, of the breath as it comes in and out of your body. Just rest there for a moment. And then bring your attention to your mind, if that makes any sense. And rest your mind in the body as the body is resting in your seat or on the cushion. Allow the mind just to settle into the body. And be aware, if your eyes are closed, be aware of whatever visual sensation, maybe a little bit of light coming into your eyes, and let that light fill your mental space. Have a sense of your eyes retreating into the back of your head. Have a sense of your brain even settling into your skull, into your neck, into your body, like seeping down. And be aware of the vast mental space, almost the space of your imagination, radiating in 360 degrees. Allow yourself just to settle back into that mental space, resting there, the way the mind can rest in the body, the way the body can rest on the seat, on the chair, on the cushion. And then allow yourself to come to what we call in Buddhist psychology the ear door, and just listen to whatever sounds or silence, to my voice, to the incidental sounds that surround you. Let those sounds fill that mental space that you created. Just open yourself. Open yourself as much as you can to whatever comes in the next moment. And this, in a way, is what it's like in psychotherapy. We don't know what is going to happen in the hour that we're sitting together. We don't really even know what's going to happen in this next moment that we're sitting here silently together. Be open even to whatever random thoughts might come. And be curious about those thoughts. Don't rush to shut the thinking down. Even thoughts about the virus, thoughts about the quarantine, sheltering in your own space. Feel what it's like to be sheltering within your own space. To be quarantined in this body, in this mind, in this incarnation. Just be with it all. And if it starts to be confusing, if it's too much, remember, focus on your bodily sensations. Find the sensation of the breath. Let the breath come and go as it will on its own. And settle into your own experience, whatever form it's going to take. There's an exercise that the pulmonary people do with the patients in the hospital when they're training them to regain their breath coming off the virus, which is when they breathe in, to breathe in through your nose and smell the roses. And when you breathe out through your mouth and blow out the candles. And you could try that 3 times now as we end the meditation. Breathe in through your nose and smell the roses. And breathe out through your mouth, blow out the candles. Try it 3 times. Allow that last exhale to take your attention with it back out into the world. When you feel ready, you can open your eyes. And we're back.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. So the questions are already coming in. Here's one from Kimber. Hi there. I am so anxious about the protests going on right now and the division of our country. Any suggestions?
Well, I think we all have to be careful about being too seduced by the media. And if you're finding yourself getting anxious by what you're seeing or reading or hearing, this is not to say that it's not an important issue, and that if there was something that we could do about it, that we, I'm not saying not to do anything about it, but take care of yourself first. So you don't have to keep immersing yourself in the bad news. Okay, if it's going to upset you, make you anxious, if there's nothing productive to do with the anxiety, shut the thing off. Because the media needs to have material that can make an impact on the viewers or readers, and you don't have to be a victim of that. You can take care of your own mind first.
Yeah, Saturday morning when I was anchoring Good Morning America, we were going to use some of the footage from the protests, and our boss called and said, if you use that, you need to point out that the vast majority of Americans in public opinion polls support continuing the shutdown longer. and that these protests may be visually provocative, but they're small and scattered for now. So
yeah, I'm glad that you're saying that. I was talking to a patient this morning who was in London, and she was saying, she's an American woman, but she's living in London. And she was saying that the press is different there. Like they don't have that level of coverage of the intelligence of dealing with this, so that people are more, there's less pushback against what needs to be done now to protect everybody. So I'm glad that there's talk about that within our media too.
I mean, I also agree with you in terms of news titration that, and I don't want to put myself out of a job given that I'm a newsman, but it's important to stay at least minimally informed, but it's also important not to lose your head. And so pull yourself out of the Twitter hole, pull yourself out of watching news all day long, every moment of the day. You can stay informed without making yourself crazier than you need to be.
Yeah, and you can give yourself periods of time. Some people really need to enforce it, where they're going to be X number of hours without the TV on, or without looking at the phone, or without getting the news, because when you step outside, if you're lucky enough to be able to step outside, it's so quiet out now. The birds, where I am, the birds have taken over. I mean, and I looked out the window the other day when I was doing therapy, and 4 bears were walking by, and it's crazy. And the natural world is really alive.
Yeah.
So
next thing, the dinosaurs are going to come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Joy Fisher asks the following question. There's a lot happening right now that is left open with no closure. High school, college, people are dying without funerals. What can we do to cope without this closure?
Well, there's where there's no closure, there's really no closure. So you can't pretend. This is a real thing that's going on, and the feelings that one is left with are important to acknowledge. At the same time, I think that we can create our own rituals, and we have to do that in order to make sense out of what's happening. So even when there's not a funeral, there's a way to have a ceremony. Even when we don't know when school is going to open, whether school is going to open, we can still be doing the work that will make it easier for us when it does happen. So it has to be co-created. We're all in this together.
Joanna asks, given the Buddhist acceptance that we never know the future, what role should making plans and setting goals play?
It's very important to understand that, of course, we have to make plans and set goals, but always with the understanding that whatever expectations we have about whether those things are going to be realized should be tempered by reality. And reality in this case, or actually, it's not limited to this case, but reality is always tempered by the not knowing. So that doesn't mean that we don't make the plan for what we're having for dinner, or for where we're going to retire, or what our summer vacation is going to be. But you can't always count on it happening. And when it doesn't happen, and this is often a therapy issue, when things don't go the way we wanted them to go, a lot of people make the problem something going on in themselves, when it is not. Usually it's not about you. And that's a very important lesson, Buddhist or not Buddhist. Little kids think everything is about them. So when their parents aren't getting along, or when their mother is depressed, or when their father is drunk, or when their sister is beating them up, or whatever it is, they think it's because there's something wrong with them. And it takes years and years before the realization comes, or a good enough therapist comes, that people can start to unpack that. So, speaking as a psychotherapist, that's what I would want to say.
It's amazing how helpful you can be in such a short period of time. I am not amazed because you've been helpful to me in a million ways, but it's just that you can pack so much wisdom into sound bites is very impressive. So thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. We're at the end of our time, so let me just say before we go that if you want to do us a favor, please like this video and subscribe to our YouTube page and share it to everybody you know. That's a great way to help us grow this community, and we'll of course be back tomorrow with another great meditation teacher. Mark, thank you again. Really appreciate it.
Dan, it's such a pleasure to see you.
It is always such a pleasure to see you. You're going to be on the podcast soon, so I'll get.
Yeah, soon. I think this week we're doing it.
Yes.
So we can talk more. I hope that was okay.
It was great. Okay.
And I hope it was okay.
Thank you, everybody. I'll see you right back here tomorrow.
All right, good.